Hey everybody, my name is Mike Montgomery, and in today's video, I'd like to show you how I built this DIY weight bench for my DIY home gym with built-in wheels on Modern Builds. I was shopping online and I was really surprised to see how expensive or flimsy just a basic weightlifting bench was. So today we're gonna use this leftover material and build one that is extra sturdy. I started this project by breaking down a piece of plywood to 12 inches wide with my circular saw and a straight edge. After that, I cut that piece in half so that I had two 4-foot long pieces. I decided to use two pieces for the bench platform, although I'm sure one would work fine. I used quite a bit of wood glue, and then once everything was aligned, I held it together with spring clamps and then screwed it down with 1.25" Power Pro screws. I'll leave a link to these screws down in the description. I like them because you don't have to pre-drill a hole for connecting plywood. Next, it was time to break down the 2x4's for the base. The two pieces I'm cutting are 45 inches long, that way there's an 1.5 inch overhang on the base and platform on each end. I'm also going to be gluing and screwing these pieces and doubling everything up. I used quite a few 2.5 inch long wood screws, and I made sure to countersink each screw, that way the next board could sit flat. This is where I should mention I've got free plans for this project, linked below if you're interested in building this for yourself. And if you do, be sure to tag me at Modern Builds. I love seeing viewer projects. Each side of the base has two 13-inch vertical posts, and I cut those out using my speed square. Along with that, there's a center beam that's the same height minus the thickness of 3 2x4's. And last but not least, you'll need a couple 3.5 inch by 3.5 inch squares. So I bet as you watch the assembly, you'll really understand how it all comes together, but I was really careful to make sure that I screwed in each of my pieces as square as possible to the platform. I'm using the same 2.5 inch wood screws as earlier, and I made sure to pre-drill a hole before screwing in each piece with a healthy amount of wood glue. This whole project is pretty similar to the DIY bench press that my buddy Binueta built on the channel Homemade Modern. It's where the 2x4 beam idea came from for the legs. We're also 2/3 of the Modern Maker podcast that we host with our buddy Chris Salamone from 4x4's Furniture. I'll leave a link to all of that down in the description as well. Now that one side of the base assembled perfectly, I just needed to repeat those steps on the second, and a rubber mallet really came in handy, wedging these pieces into place. Oh, and it's always good to have a pack of shims laying around for a situation like this. My boards were pretty flush, but I got them perfect with the belt sander. I just wanted to make sure I was as square as possible on the ends of each leg.
Oh, that's awesome.
If I left the bench like this, it would be too wobbly. The base needs to have a T-post to the bottom. So I cut a couple of pieces that are 16 inches long with a 45-degree bevel on each end. Now the bevel is not necessary, I just thought it would look cool. I glued and screwed these pieces to the bottom just like everything else. I made a mark in the center of the board for reference, that way I could line everything up. And I cut these little wedges, that way the base would be double thick across the board. I'll admit, this is the first time I've used this style of can opener in my shop, but I was at the store and I saw this wood filler and I figured I would give it a try. I used it to backfill any recessed screw heads, and a glove made a pretty decent lid. Then I sanded everything with 120 grit sandpaper on my random orbit sander and applied a coat of water-based polyurethane in satin finish. I made sure to round over all of my edges, that way it wouldn't hurt if I knocked into anything. I also wanted to protect the upholstery and fabric, which is the next step. But first, I'd like to give a big thanks to the sponsor of today's episode, Squarespace. If you need a website, an online store, or just a custom domain, Squarespace is your one-stop shop. And the best part is you need zero website building experience. If you can drag and drop files and edit text blocks, you are well on your way to a one-of-a-kind website. And Squarespace's designer templates are designed to look great on desktop, tablet, and mobile, no matter where your customers find you. Plus, they're packed with great features like unlimited products in Squarespace stores, built-in SEO, and really great analytics. And right now, if you follow the link down in my description, that's squarespace.com/modernbuilds, you can build out your entire Squarespace site without entering any of your credit card info. And then when it's time to make your site live, make sure and use my code ModernBuilds for 10% off. Thanks again to Squarespace. Now let's get back to this build. I ordered this 3-inch thick foam off Amazon and it worked great for me. I'll leave a link down below. It's got a little bit of give, but not too much that you feel the plywood underneath. Now I've seen those really cool foam cutting hot knives, but I don't have one of those, and I cut everything down using a straight edge and a utility blade. Out of my own curiosity, if anybody has helpful tips for cutting thick foam like this, leave a comment down below. Thanks! I applied a really thick coat of spray adhesive to the foam because it's very porous, and then I did a normal coat on the plywood. After that, I let it set for about 5 minutes, and then I connected the two pieces together for a permanent bond. I also picked up this piece of gray UV-resistant fabric from Amazon. They've got a ton of different colors, and this is 1 yard. I used a whole bunch of 1/2-inch T50 staples, and I just wrapped everything like a Christmas gift. I've got no idea how to do upholstery, but this worked out pretty well. I worked each end and then the two sides, trying to pull as much as possible before stapling it down. And it's awesome that 1 yard of fabric is the perfect amount for this project. Now you could absolutely leave the project right here, but I want to add some casters. And as you can tell, the ones that spin have a wheel that is offset from the center of the mounting plate. So instead of using fixed casters where they are on the center line, I used some 5-minute epoxy to lock these spinning ones in place. I made sure that this epoxy worked its way into the ball bearings, and then I let it set on this tape to cure. Then I sanded everything back and pre-drilled holes so that I could mount it back onto the base. And with that, this DIY rolling 2x4 weight bench is complete. Now I absolutely love this project, and for the price, it couldn't be better. Oh, and it's a part of this DIY squat rack bench press combo that I'll leave a link for in the description. Be sure to check that video out. So thanks again for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you build something inspired by this, make sure and tag me at Modern Builds. Down in the description, I'll leave a link to the full DIY home gym. Make sure and subscribe, like, comment, all that sort of stuff. Oh, and the notification bell, and we will see you next time on Modern Builds.